tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
Your second dose is just as important as the first dose.
Getting your second shot. More clarity on when, where, and which one you'll get. Also, a complaint about loud goats in rural Maple Ridge baffles the local farm community.
Here's your new home.
How one BC school is using, chickens to help students.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Well, it's the update hundreds of thousands of British Columbians who received the AstraZeneca shot have been waiting for. The province now giving detailed guidance for second doses. Tanya Fletcher joins us now. Tanya, today we're hearing those people will have a choice.
Yeah, that's right. Any of the 280,000 people who received AstraZeneca in BC as their first dose will have the option to choose any type of vaccine now for their second dose. Overall, they say it's preferable to receive the same vaccine for both doses, but the latest guidance suggests it's still safe and effective to combine different types of vaccines. Dr. Bonnie Henry was asked what the actual medical advice is from her, especially since so many were looking for direction to make an informed decision. She says the rare risk for blood clotting with AstraZeneca is considerably even lower for dose 2, and its overall effectiveness has shown to be just as good as Pfizer or Moderna. The consideration also has to do with what the studies are revealing now about possible mixing and matching side effects.
They found that if you had a different vaccine for your second dose, you were more likely to have side effects that included a sore arm and a fever and achiness and feeling kind of blah for a couple of days. None of the serious side effects, but more likely to have a bit more of a side effect.
She says at the end of the day, it's a personal choice for everyone to weigh their own risks, and that overall they're equally good options.
Fair enough. Okay, so what about the logistics? How are these second doses actually going to be rolled out for those who received AstraZeneca first?
Yeah, starting next week, bookings will begin for their second shots. And for those who choose to receive AstraZeneca again for that second dose, you'll receive it much like your first.
It will be available to you through pharmacies, and that will be starting on Monday. We're shipping out over the next few days, and the pharmacy where you received your vaccine will be in contact with you to set up those appointments.
She's specifically asking you not to call the pharmacy, that the pharmacy will contact you. And for those who want a second dose of one of the mRNA vaccines, so Pfizer or Moderna instead, you'll receive that through one of the province's mass clinics. And you must be registered online so that you can receive your booking invite to do so. That will start happening next week as well. And with all the vaccines in BC, the minimum window between doses is now 8 weeks. And the province expects there will be enough supply to fully vaccinate everyone by the end of summer, and very likely, they say, much sooner. Anita?
Definitely good news. Thanks, Tanya. On the immunization front, a record high 21,000 British Columbians received a second dose of the COVID vaccine yesterday. Nearly 72% of adults in BC have gotten at least one dose. For the third straight day, the province has recorded less than 200 cases of the virus, and 2 more people have died. Numbers from the province show those over 80 are lagging behind in registering to receive their second dose. As Susanna De Silva reports, some seniors and those who work with them say the information has been confusing.
Anyone who received their shot before April 6th, when the province-wide vaccination system came online, needs to register by phone or online before being able to book a second dose. But not everyone has gotten the message.
There was some confusion. We have posters in our elevator to explain the situation.
I thought we were getting a phone call after we phoned in to say that we would like to be on the list. And unfortunately, I didn't get a phone call. I didn't get something in the mail from Bonnie. So I just took the initiative myself.
And not everyone is doing that. Numbers from the province say only about 57% of seniors aged 80 and up are registered, less than every other age group except teenagers.
Going number of calls, probably between 20 and 30 every day, requesting information about how to get their shot, why people haven't been calling them about their shot.
Staff and volunteers at this centre say many seniors are holding back, waiting for a call, assuming they registered with their first dose. But the province doesn't have phone or email addresses for many of those who got their shots early.
We really appreciate Dr. Bonney. We appreciate the work that the health authorities are doing. But boy, it really would have been nice for some more consistent thought to be put in when you're dealing with an age category-based system. Many of our seniors are not able to remember details, need some support and guidance, and they feel that they're being totally left adrift.
Letters are going out to those who are not registered, but the province is asking for help to get the word out.
Please reach out to the elders and seniors in your life and check with them whether they've received the invite for their second dose.
They're also reminding people invitations to book a shot won't come until 8 weeks have passed since your first dose. Susanna Da Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
A body found in the Fraser River has now been identified as Shailene Bell, a young mother of 2 from Chilliwack. The 23-year-old's remains were discovered yesterday in the waterway near Coquitlam. She was last seen in late January. RCMP say there is no indication foul play was involved, and they are asking the public to respect Bell's family's privacy as they grieve. A man is dead after being run over while sleeping in an alley near Gore Street and Union Avenue in Vancouver.
Really is a tragic set of circumstances. It really does underscore the vulnerability of the homeless population and the population of drug users in the downtown east side.
The man was using drugs when he fell asleep in front of an alley parkade gate. Police say the driver involved was not able to see the man. No charges are expected against the driver. Well, a Maple Ridge woman is stunned after someone threatened to call the SPCA over her goats being too loud. The thing is, she lives in a rural area surrounded by farmland, so the complaint is unexpected. Our Isabel Regam has more on the bleeding concerns.
They're sounds that may be startling to hear in the city, but in the rural community of Wannock in Maple Ridge, this isn't unusual.
Expect that you're going to see and hear and smell all sorts of different things.
It's why Rhiannon McMillan was in disbelief when she received this anonymous letter in her mailbox last week, complaining about her noisy farm animals.
There was a note that said, feed your animals or sell them, or we will be calling the SPCA. We can hear them all the way over to our place. I was literally in shock.
McMillan says she specifically moved to Wannock to enjoy the country lifestyle. Go. A few kilometers away, Pascal Shaw operates Rainbow Eggs Farm. She also sits on the local agricultural advisory committee.
With the mad rush to buy real estate today, people aren't doing their homework.
As rural communities grow with new residents priced out of the city, she's concerned that some aren't learning about their neighbors before moving.
When they get there, they're surprised to know that there's animals making strange noises, there's strange smells they're not used to, and they're surprised and disappointed.
Few places in Metro Vancouver have grown at a faster rate in the last decade than in the eastern half of Maple Ridge, home of traditionally rural neighborhoods like Wannock and Webster's Corner. According to census data, the population of the southern half of the area increased by 45% from 2006 to 2016. Virtually all of that came from an increase in single detached houses that used to be the site of farmland or forests. While McMillan doesn't know who wrote the complaint, she suspects it's someone relatively new to the area or unfamiliar with the farm lifestyle. The Maple Ridge branch of the SPCA says so far it has not received a formal complaint about the noisy animals. McMillan says if you can get past the smells and sounds,
You might get some free eggs, you never know.
there are advantages to having neighbors with farm animals. Isabel Regam, CBC News, Maple Ridge.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff joins us now with the forecast. Joe, we're hearing of evacuation orders along the Skeena River.
That's right, Anita. Yeah, surprising for the rest of us across the province dealing with hot and dry. All the rain, though, has been hitting the northwest over the past couple of days. I just want to take you to the map. Sounds like the evacuation orders are coming just south of Terrace through the community of Remo along the Skeena River. That is where heavy rain over the past couple of days in combination with melting snowpack is leading to flooding along the Skeena River and the adjoining streams and tributaries. We have seen exceptional snowpacks this winter. We're seeing melts of between 15 and 40 millimeters per day on top of the rain that we're getting. So, Anita, we'll keep you posted on that story. But if you're wondering where all the rain is, that's where it's been heading. I'll take you through the full provincial forecast coming up a little later.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks, Joe. The mayors of Vancouver and Victoria are making plans to rename city streets, scrubbing the maps of a problematic colonial figure. In a statement, Vancouver Mayor Kennedy Stewart says, "I have spoken with Musqueam leadership about renaming Trutch Street and am in full support." He's planning to bring the proposal to City Council. Joseph Trutch was the province's first lieutenant governor, and he aggressively seized land from Indigenous people and communities. On the island, Victoria's mayor says reconciliation takes many forms, notably through economic opportunity, and she specified why some historical figures are under scrutiny.
Just like when we removed the statue of John A. Macdonald, there are some colonial figures who have been more damaging and more influential in the past than others.
She said she was compelled to act quickly following the discovery of children's remains at the former residential school in Kamloops. Well, during the NHL playoffs on CBC, just a reminder of how and where you can watch this show. We'll be on every weekday at 6 p.m. online, streaming on CBC Gem, YouTube, and Facebook. And then we'll be on television after the hockey game each evening. Those times, of course, will vary depending on when the game starts and when it ends. You can always watch our show on demand, though, cbc.ca/BC. The Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls Action Plan was released today, and right out of the gate, widespread anger. Why advocates are saying it simply isn't enough. Next. Thank you for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream. A Nova Scotia man was recently honored with an award for doing something special during the pandemic to lift the spirits of others. As Colleen Jones shows us, what the artist does washes away, but it always brings a smile.
Vince Landry, a retired grandfather, doesn't look like a hero, but that's what someone wrote in front of his house. What hero carries a tub of chalk and a sketch pad with what he plans to draw on the sidewalks in front of homes in his Dartmouth neighborhood? Throughout the 15 months of the pandemic, Vince uses his chalk art to bring a smile.
I think the first one I did in May of last year was for the Nurses Week. I drew a nurse's cap for the lady across my street.
He researches special occasions. For example, did you know it's National Running Day today?
I don't know whose quote it is, so I didn't write the name of who it was. Kind of difficult, because sometimes if you get distracted, you spell the word wrong.
This one he's doing for two little boys who live nearby, who seem to enjoy his art.
They kind of keep me energized just by their smile. So today I have something that says, "You guys crack me up," and it's an egg with a broken shell next to it. So,
as he draws, Charlie and George come out to see what Vince has created.
That's just like you. You like slugs, don't you?
Throughout the 15 months, of course, he didn't draw in the winter, and as you can see, the hands and knees position takes a toll.
But you can see where I have calluses on my knuckles from leaning down on the asphalt. Last summer, I quite enjoyed it, and then I had a pinched nerve in my neck, so I had to take the month off in July. And then I ended up having to get my appendix out the end of July. So I had a few weeks in August where I couldn't bend down enough to do it.
Just as the pandemic began, he was finishing his treatment for cancer as well. Doing this helped.
I needed something to occupy my time a bit at the time, so it was kind of a good way of contributing at the same time as helping myself to occupy a few hours of my day.
Getting the Dr. Strang Award and having neighbors do their own sketches thanking him, he's grateful.
I was humbled. And I thought, oh my God, I hope the other people did something more worthy than what I considered to be what I was doing to be. Sometimes I'm watching people and they come by and they take a picture with their phone and they chuckle and they walk on, and that makes my day.
It makes his day, yes, but through his chalk art, he's making a lot of people's day a little bit brighter, one sketch at a time. Colleen Jones, CBC News, Dartmouth.
Great stuff. Seen lots of inspiring stories during this pandemic. Okay, stick with us. We will be back in a few moments with what's making news across the country. Ottawa is rolling out a new national plan in response to the tragedy of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. It promises transformative change over several years, but as Olivia Stefanovich tells us, for some of those still reeling from loss, it brings little resolution.
After 2 years of waiting for an official response, Judy Anderson watched as the National Action Plan was made public, but it brought her no closure.
With my sister, there are no leads, there's no clues.
She wants to know what happened to her sister, Shelley Mae Anderson, who disappeared in Northern Ontario more than a decade ago.
There are no investments that can bring back the lives lost or that can heal people's pain.
The Prime Minister seemed to acknowledge that, but says his government is trying to do better.
We're taking a step forward together to make the transformative change necessary.
The federal component of the action plan pledges to revitalize Indigenous languages, transform the delivery of health care, improve law enforcement training, and designate Indigenous policing an essential service. To pay for the promises, the government set aside more than $2 billion in the budget.
What reason does any Indigenous person in Canada have to trust the government?
The inquiry's chief commissioner says the commitments lack timelines and costing.
That document does not speak for me as a Nehewa woman and as a survivor.
Krista Shore was 12 years old when her mom was killed. The man who took Barbara Ann Shore's life was convicted, but not before police first blamed Shore's brother and father.
So if you ask me if police forces and RCMP should get more funds, no, they've been the big prominent piece of downplaying and constructing the violence Indigenous women and girls face.
But Shore says she finds strength in carrying the story of her mother's loss.
I'll continue to speak truth to power.
Olivia Stefanovich reporting from Ottawa tonight. In this province, Indigenous leaders say justice is still being denied to the loved ones of many missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls.
I hate to go to a lot of the women in our groups and on front lines and those in court and those that are just recently lost loved ones or those that are still searching for their loved ones, whether it's 2 years, 5 years, or 30 years, and tell them we still have a long way to go.
Speaking to a panel of experts in response to the report, Wilson says the national plan falls short on several fronts, including a lack of immediate action. We will continue to learn more about what happened to Indigenous children at residential schools across the province. As we do, the need for support will only grow. In the meantime, 2 crisis lines for survivors and their families are being inundated with calls. The Indian Residential School Survivors Society usually counts up to 2,000 interactions a month. Since the discovery of children's remains last week, the executive director says they are hearing from 3,000 to 5,000 people a day. They are asking the First Nations Health Authority for more support. Similarly, the Kuas Crisis Line Society in Port Alberni says it has added more staff. This story is disturbing and can be traumatic. Those crisis lines are open to your calls. You can reach the 24-hour Indian Residential School Survivor Society at 1-866 925-4419. The CUAS crisis line, as we just told you about, is another option and has lines for adults as well as youth. This information is also available on our website, cbc.ca/BC. Montreal may have clinched the first win last night in their playoff series with Winnipeg, but today the talk of the town is what happened in the last minute of the game. The vicious hit that left a Canadian player flat on the ice with a concussion. Cameron McIntosh now with the replay and the reaction.
Winnipeg's first game with fans in the stands, final score notwithstanding, an ending no one wanted to see.
Canadians are going to clear Evans.
Watch Canadians forward Jake Evans wrapping the puck around the empty net. Then
Scheifele flattens Evans, who hasn't got up.
Jets top center Mark Scheifele now suspended 4 games. Evans, who left on a stretcher, now day-to-day with a concussion.
He gave a thumbs up as he was wheeled off the ice, so I'm glad about that. It was a pretty tense time in the arena for sure.
From another angle, Evans is in the clear but vulnerable with his head down. He scores just before Scheifele at high speed makes the hit. No attempt to play the puck.
My initial thoughts were it seemed like a clean hit.
Hockey Night in Canada analyst Parminder Singh says on second look, it's the contact with Evans' head, which is down, that the NHL really wants out of the game.
We are taking these hits very seriously. Forget about the misfortunes around the hit, but the fact of the matter is that the player was hit in the head. Was taken off on a stretcher.
Many Montreal fans wanted an even tougher suspension. Among ex-NHLers, plenty of debate all day.
I don't want to see Mark Scheifele get suspended, but the right call was made on the ice. A suspension is coming, deservedly so.
If he hopped up and celebrated the goal in the corner, nothing would be discussed.
It's certainly amped up tension in the series. Earlier today, Scheifele's teammates insisted the hit was clean. But
if that had happened to one of our players, I think it'd be, your hands would be up.
We all know what happened last night, and the best way to get back at them for that is to win the series.
Montreal leads 1-0. Game 2 goes tomorrow without Scheifele, and most likely without Evans as well. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, you probably heard of therapy dogs, horses, maybe even cats. But chickens? Why, a North Vancouver school has gone for the birds. Next.
Good evening. It's Sunday in Beijing, and it will be remembered as China's Bloody Sunday. Chinese troops have taken over Tiananmen Square. The students who were camped out there protesting for more democracy have been brutally driven out. Hundreds were shot. It's still not yet clear just how many people were killed. The battles raged all night long, all through the downtown core. NBC News says, based on its calls to local hospitals, as many as 200 are dead. But one doctor estimated that at least 500 people have been killed. Hundreds more are wounded. It's a bloody end to a protest that's been so notable because it's been so peaceful. Tom Kennedy has our report. The pictures are stills that were sent out on telephone lines.
It was worse than anyone could have expected. Just before midnight Beijing time, soldiers and armored vehicles began moving on Tiananmen Square from both the east and the west. The column in the east got stopped by citizens' blockade. Soldiers got out of their vehicles and sat around. At the same time, in the west end, soldiers blasted their way through, shooting indiscriminately. The shooting would continue for the next 7 hours. Demonstrators fought back with bricks, stones, and Molotov cocktails, setting buses and anti-personnel vehicles on fire. But it was clear from the beginning that the military was willing to do whatever was necessary to get control of the center of the city. Not long after the column from the west arrived in the square, the column that had been bogged down from the other direction broke through using dozens of tanks. They drove quickly down the wide main boulevard and with automatic weapons opened fire on bystanders. People began running in panic in all directions. Ambulances drove in minutes later to pick up the dead and wounded. Once the tanks reached Tiananmen Square, they turned on the protesters who were left and again opened fire. Students who were not hit either escaped or sat quietly waiting to be arrested. It was clear from the beginning it would be a brutal night, and the military was in an ugly mood. They had tried 24 hours ago to move on the square, but were stopped by huge crowds of people who deflated tires and surrounded the vehicles. The image of soldiers at the mercy of civilians, surrounded by international media, was indeed a humiliating one. Later, students showed off equipment they had taken from soldiers. There were no guns, but clubs, machete-like knives, and electric prods. It was clear then that the government was left with few choices. It could allow the demonstrations to continue. It could try negotiations, or it could resort to brutality. It is morning now in Beijing, and thousands of soldiers and dozens of tanks occupy the center of the city. Hundreds of thousands of people are in the streets, but after the events of the last few hours, they're keeping their distance from the soldiers.
Well, it's no secret the pandemic changed a lot about school for young people across BC. So to keep spirits high, the Vancouver Waldorf School in North Vancouver hatched a plan to bring in chickens. Staff wanted students to build a habitat, care for the creatures, and learn responsibility along the way. And we were there to capture move-in day. Have a look.
Here's your new home.
The black and white one is Rosa. The red one is Laverne.
It's one thing to have bees, but chickens? Maybe this will turn out to be farm school or something.
This is the culmination of the grade 3 building project. The idea came up about animal husbandry and even animal therapy. So we decided to try to make it a reality of having chickens at the school. It's just really captured the imagination and the spirit of the children.
I'm really excited. It's really fun. I thought they would be a little smaller.
The kids have done incredible work. We did landscaping, we had to level the ground. They built a retaining wall and smashed big spikes into pieces of wood.
I could help with feeding them and cleaning up their chicken coop and the stuff.
As a teacher, you know, when you've found something that works for the children, the learning all just happens. So that's really been the best part about it from my perspective.
Learning with animals is such a great way to learn. Anytime I've covered stories with all sorts of animals, the kids just love it.
Oh, I totally agree. This is going in a 0.4, me actually getting chickens. I'm going to have to save this piece for my husband for viewing later.
You've been talking about this for a bit.
I know, yeah.
Okay, good luck. On another front, the sun stuck around today. I can't say I'm going to complain about that.
Yeah, a little sunnier than some of the earlier forecast models were showing, but we did see that drop in temperatures, but mainly blue skies. We got away with a high pressure for one more day, although it was nice to see those temperatures drop just a touch. Here's a look at where we're at this evening as far as current temperatures go. 21 at YVR with the Humidex, still feeling like the mid-20s, not the 30s, though, we were feeling over the past couple of days. 26 in through Kelowna for tomorrow, 28 out towards Cranbrook. We've got lots of sunshine for one more day. Not necessarily great news because the fire danger is creeping out. We have pockets of extreme. We have to wait until the weekend for this high pressure, or this low pressure, I should say, to move in and bring good rain across the province. This is the system, though, that will bring, on the flip side, more rain to those communities along the Skeena River where they don't need it. So definitely two sides of spring right now happening across the province. We will see the other side ourselves here in Metro Vancouver, down to 17s this weekend. Showers for both days. Doesn't look like a washout, but we will need the rain, and looks like I need a slow warm-up next week. We've got a lot going on in our forecast.
Not bad, still pretty warm. I do love a good warm rainy day.
Oh, me too. Yeah, kind of tropical. We could pretend we're on vacation.
100%. That's what I'm doing. All right, thanks, Jill. Well, you can always find our news program online, cbc.ca/BC. Dan Bird is here at 11 o'clock after the National. Good night.